Hi and welcome back to my channel. I am Koala and this is my little nook in this end of the universe that we call YouTube. I am a shamanic practitioner, mainly within the Nordic shamanism. I'm also initiated into Nusta Karpai and the Munaki rites within the Kira medicine. And I practice light language. And I am a trans man. And this is the second video in my series of the journey of a spiritual trans man. So in the first video I gave you a rough timeline from childhood to today, or not to today, but up until where I came to understand that I'm trans, something like that. So that's kind of where I left off, but I did share some bits around that, so please go check that video out. I will link it up here, and so that you get the story from the start. And because in this video and in incoming videos I will try to keep myself on the timeline, and I will start where I have talked about my childhood enough. I might reference it from time to time, but where I want to focus this video is the time right before my egg hatched. And remember, I am focusing on the spiritual journey, and I will mention other things that are relevant, but that will be my focus. So I will make a lot of these smaller videos, these snippets, because I don't want to make one long video about this. I want it to be easily digestible. So I had my egg hatch. It's such a lovely phrase of expression, isn't it? Egg hatching, and that's kind of how it felt. So I had my egg hatch during the summer of 2022, so 3 years ago. When I record this, it's almost exactly 3 years ago. So in this video I'm gonna talk about what led up to that. So what I'm talking about is how I felt and what I went through in the spring and early summer of 2022. So there are a lot of things that I mentioned in the previous video that happened before that it's not of a spiritual nature, but it's important to my journey, and that is being open to and receiving a lot of information about like what it really is to be trans. So I did mention it in my previous video, and I'm just gonna mention it here because it is important to my journey. And that is that up until the spring, like for a couple of years, I slowly but surely became aware of the fact that trans people exist on a larger scale than I knew before. So when I was younger, in my home and with the adults that I had around me, the language was very not friendly towards trans people. There were there were a lot of slurs mentioned. I can say that I don't want to repeat anything that was said when I grew up, but there was a lot of slurs and a lot of, oh, no, you're not like them. If I even tried to just vent about the things, or had like a thought or something like that I needed to just say in any circumstance, I was always met with a wall of, oh no, not like them, not like that, by people who saw themselves as very open and very open and welcoming and very open-minded. So that is kind of what I had growing up. So it took a long time for me to actually, you know, be susceptible to and open up to other kinds of another kind of language around the trans people and the trans experience, because I didn't know any people that were trans when I grew up, and if I did, they were talked about in a dismissive kind of way, and a way like they are less than we are, which is just, it's just, I laugh because now it's like hilarious. We, who is we? Yeah, it was them. So not me, it was them. But yeah, so it took a long time for me to be open to that and susceptible to that. So for a couple of years before the spring of 2022, I had experienced a new world, you can say, by finding out that trans people are everywhere and finding out the language behind it. And I became very, I would say almost, I think one of my friends called me a bit of a gatekeeper, and I was very protective of the trans community. I didn't see myself as a part of it yet. I actually put a distance between me and them, because that's what I grew up with. It was just that I saw the trans community as a vulnerable group that I cared for, and I wanted all of them to live their best lives, and I really wanted them to keep finding themselves and living their truest self, you know. But I hadn't taken the step into the community yet. I hadn't let my egg hatch. So there are one conversation that really helped me, and then there are two other events that really helped me towards that moment of having my egg hatch. And those are the three I'm going to talk about briefly. Or I'm going to go into them, but the video won't be long. So the first one was a conversation I had with a friend that is, at the time, they were gender fluid, and I talked to them because I had a lot of questions, and I felt like I needed to know all of the answers, because I felt protective of the trans community, and I felt like I wanted to educate people and remove ignorance from outside of that community. So I needed all the answers. I was collecting answers to questions that I didn't even know why I asked. So I remember having this conversation with a friend, because I was like, they are a part of the community. They are someone I feel I can trust, and I trust them to tell me if I'm asking an intrusive question, but I feel like I can ask these questions so that I have the answers, because I wanted to protect the trans community from having to answer the questions themselves. So it was kind of a misguided sense of protectiveness. I wanted to protect myself, but I projected it onto the entire community as something outside of me. And my friend listened and let me ask all of these questions, gave me some answers from their perspective, and then they said, but I just need to ask, why do you want to know all of this? And I said, well, I need to know, because I need the answer so that I can educate people on this topic when the topic arises, because I want to make sure that I say the right things, so I don't say something that's wrong. And that's why I'm asking you about it. Okay, but why do you want to know? And right then and there, I didn't have this great epiphany. It came later, but it did put a seed in the soil that was me, and in my mind, and made me carry that question with me for a while. Yeah, so that was a really important conversation that I had. And then after that, I had two events that I want to share, and I briefly mentioned them in the timeline as well. And the first one was that I had a friend. I had a friend, also a client, and I was a client of hers. we had a very, very spiritual relationship, and the kind where you where you learn from each other. So she had offered me at one point to open me up to light language and to activate light language inside of, like, activate my light language. And to be fair, I was a tiny bit skeptical. I think I would have been more skeptical towards light language if it didn't resonate with me when I heard it. So it really spoke to my soul, and it spoke to my core. And I think it's the name light language that I had some trouble with in the beginning, because I'm a very Nordic practitioner. I am earthbound and grounded, and everything, you know, light and love feels very or felt very fleety, I would say. That's kind of the vibe I got when I talked about or like heard the term. So it did resonate with me when I heard it. It was speaking to my soul, so I was intrigued, and I had been attending a few events with this person specifically, that she held a few ceremonies with light language, and they resonated with me, and I really was intrigued by it. So I did some research, and I found another term for it, which is the language of the soul, or in Swedish, själens språk. That is the term that I found were like the Swedish translation of light language. Wasn't light language, it was the language of the soul, and that resonated more with me. So I needed to like find that way in, and then I could open up to it. So one day late spring in 2022, I met with my friend in central Stockholm in a park. I wasn't very comfortable with that, but I trusted her, and I was like, okay, sure, we'll do it here. So we found a park, and we found a big tree that we felt really held the space for us. And she activated my light language then and there, and she told me how to summon it, or like how to call upon it when I needed to, and how to work with it. She told me a little bit about how to work with it for my sake, for my own sake. So when you first learn light language or open up to light language, you work with light language on yourself and with yourself. And that's kind of what I do with every practice that I try or open up to in any kind of tradition. I work privately with it for a long time first, to really connect with whatever it is. I went through the same thing with Nusta Karpai, that is the goddess rites. I worked with goddess rites for several years for my own sake, and to really cement my relationship with the goddesses before I even ventured outside of my own sacred space together with them, and held some ceremonies where I called upon these energies, these goddesses, to share their energies in a circle, and then later on I started to give the rites forward. So everything I've ever learned within the spiritual community, or the spiritual practice, the shamanic practice, whatever it's been, I have always worked closely, like held it close to my vest for a long time. So I was very adamant to do that with light language as well, and this person told me how to do that in a broader sense, but not in a more specific sense. So I had to like trial and error a lot, and I also incorporated it into my ceremonies, and I let it flow, because one of the reasons it resonated with me when I met someone that was really a master of it, is that I had it flow through me and out of me in ceremonies where I had really opened up to different energies, like when I dove into my relationship with the goddesses of the Nustocarpi, I had light language flow through me. So, and I had also had it, I think I mostly had it when I drummed. So when I drummed, especially with one of my other drums, not this one of my other drums, I had the feeling of this ancient language just coming through me, or from my inner core, my higher self, and really just expressing through that in a way, and I just let it flow. I didn't question it or anything like that. So that's kind of why I got intrigued by it, and what I felt resonated with me when I met it. So yeah, so that happened in late spring of 2022. So the third thing I'm going to talk about in this video is something I mentioned in my first video. I had a friend that I was intrigued by something she practices, which is Theta healing, and so she offered to give me a healing session, and she was very clear on the fact that it was something that she had shaped it. Yeah, that's more like it, like shaped it. So I don't know the origin of the part, or I don't know the origin of it or the different parts that are included in it, because we only had this one healing session, I think. But it's called Theta healing, and it felt like very precise healing. So this is what I remember. Okay, this is what I remember. I remember she guiding me deeper and deeper into myself, and this is something that I also do when I have healing clients. I like to dig. I like to dive deep into the person's energies and find the core. Work with one problem and then just find the core of it and just aim right there with whatever method I am using. So that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like she was guiding me visually in like a meditation journey, deeper and deeper inside of me, and then during that I found a hole, like a big, it felt like a hole first, and it felt like it was an empty cave, and I was crawling on the walls and never settling in the cave, and because the cave was empty and there was nothing there, and outside of the cave were familiarity, there were demands people had on me that I could, put the words to and then follow, and it was easier to be outside of that hole, it felt like, or an inner kind of darkness. It wasn't a hole, there was something there, it was just that I didn't want to touch it, or I hadn't wanted to touch it. And what was in that cave, I want to call it a cave, was my self, my sense of self. So she led me right there, and she asked me, what do you feel like? And I said I feel like I am not. There's nothing here. I am not. And it was the only way I could describe it. I am not. And she said, just simply, do you want to feel like you are? And I was like, yeah, that would be very helpful. Thank you. And then she made that happen, and it felt, I don't know if she considered that light language, but it felt like the same kind of vibe, the same kind of vibrations, and the same kind of energy. And she just gave me the greatest gift of just being. So afterwards I just felt like I am. And that dear people watching this, is the key, or was the key to my awakening into who I am and discovering who I am, because in that cave were me. It was parts of me that I had hidden. So in my last video I talked about hiding parts of myself during my childhood, and those parts had been hidden in this cave. It had been put there to keep safe, in deep inside of me, to just keep those parts of me safe. So, and I have found them again, and that was the key to me understanding. So everything I had done up until that moment of self-discovery that happened 3 years ago, almost to the day when I post this, actually, were me finding pieces, finding the language for it, finding other people like me, finding out that I am not a part of the we that were differentiated from the them. and then finding pieces that helped me to open up to the possibility of being them. And then I think I'm gonna add a little bonus into this one, because it's also important. About a year before, so in the summer, I think it was late summer in 2021, I just remember this, I held a ceremony, and I don't know what ceremony it was, but I held a ceremony with some other people. It was an online ceremony. I held space and I guided the ceremony, but I also took part in it. And in that ceremony, I was shown myself. I was shown different faces of myself, and it was faces of people I had been in past lifetimes. It was faces of people I could become in other lifetimes, and it was faces of ancestors, both male, female, and the in-between. And I looked at all of these faces and I just felt like I was them. And I remember receiving the message from my higher self that you don't have to choose. You are all of these faces. They are all a part of you, and you are a part of them. And this was a message that was deeper than I first thought. And this is why I think it's so important to document everything I go through. So I do have this documented in one of my magical journals somewhere. I do have this documented if I were to look it up. So it was a message that had many depths, because it partly meant that all of my ancestors are inside of me. I am a result of all of their struggles, all of their joys, all of their successes, and all of their teachings and lessons and everything like that. I am the result, the product of all of them. And it also means that I am a product of all of my past lifetimes and all of the things that I have been through time and time again, or once upon a time, and it's all in here. But it was also there was also depth to it that was more, it was like a foreboding, or like what's foreshadowing of me discovering that I can have a different face. You know, I don't have to settle on the face that I was groomed and grown into believing was my only choice. So being the person that other people wanted me to be was not the only choice. So in that ceremony I was shown all of these possibilities, and it was metaphorical in a sense that I was shown the endless possibilities. And it just took me a while to realize that I don't have to wait for the next lifetime to become who I am. So yeah, that was a really important ceremony as well, but it didn't click until much later that it was actually a part of my becoming. Everything I've been through to this day is a part of my becoming, and every ritual I've ever had has been a part of helping me become who I am and become this grounded in myself. I've never felt so grounded in myself in my life as I do today, sitting here. And that is a wonderful feeling. That is a feeling that I wish upon everyone, to feel grounded in yourself, with yourself, and in the body that you inhabit in this lifetime. And I hope that everyone watching this knows that you don't have to wait until the next lifetime to be who you are, to become who you are. So, to live your authentic self. I think that's where I'm gonna end today. And in my next video, I'm gonna talk about, I'm gonna start with talking about the feeling of having my egg hatch from a spiritual perspective. And yeah, I'm gonna center around that experience, but I'm also probably gonna talk about how it felt afterwards, accepting myself and putting the pieces together more. So in this video I talked about all of the pieces that I needed to find myself within myself. And the next time I'm gonna talk a little bit about how it felt to put all of those pieces together. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Walk in beauty. Walk in beauty with yourself.